I'm Hannah Johnson with General Mills. Today I'm here with Jeanine Bassett, Vice President of Consumer Insights, to discuss how consumer and food trends are changing during this time of COVID-19. Jeanine, thanks so much for being with me today. My first question for you is, as restaurants close and people are sheltering in place, consumers are getting more of their food from home. How big of a shift are we talking?
This will be the single biggest impact in consumer behavior shifts, bar none. So just starting with restaurants, 97% of all restaurants right now are limited to off-premise sales only. So as we look at, okay, how does that translate to occasions in the home? It's about an 8% increase in occasions in the home. So to contextualize that, that's about 100 eating occasions per capita. That's just restaurants. Restaurants account for about 2/3 of where we get food outside the home. The other third is colleges and universities, employee cafeterias, hotels. And we've seen what's happened there as people are working at home instead and people can't travel anymore. So there's been an additional 75% reduction in all those channels. That's another 50 occasions going home. So in all, it's a 150 occasion transfer from occasions outside the home to inside the home. So in terms of historical patterns, this is unprecedented.
How have the traditional meals of breakfast, lunch, and dinner changed? Are they equally impacted by the shift of eating at home?
They're not. We eat out at a different pace per occasion. And actually the occasion that we eat out the most is lunch, right? As you think about it, most of us are working outside the office. And so when it comes to lunch, we're heading down to the cafeteria. You've been to the General Mills cafeteria. It's pretty crowded over the lunch hour, right? And of course, kids, they're off to school. And so if you're at the college, you're off, eating on campus. And if you're K through 12, you're at the cafeteria. So we have a big behavioral change there. And the kinds of food that we eat are changing as well. When we go down to the cafeteria, we're not ordering probably a ham sandwich. It's the salad bar, it's a tortilla bowl, it's a hot dog, it's a custom-made sandwich. So the nature of our food is changing too. It's hard to replicate that eating experience in the home. So lunch is the top behavioral change for our consumers. So it's no accident that we are seeing a run on easy eats like soup, deli meats, and recipes for homemade bread. Because bread, it's a perishable, and so they want to have bread on hand for those lunch occasions. Dinner is the next biggest occasion that we eat outside the home. And at least in this initial phase, we don't see, consumers turning into gourmet chefs, right? If you didn't cook before, the best you can do now is heat and eat or do some minor meal assembly. And so we have seen a 50% increase in categories that we consider convenient meals. Everything from frozen pizzas to appetizers, that's now a meal. Soups, wraps, and frozen cooked chicken and pasta. Try finding a box of spaghetti on the shelf, right? So that's what's going on in dinner. Breakfast is the third occasion eaten away from home. We're seeing strong gains in cereal and toaster strudel. This is an easy transition for consumers to make. The solutions at home are familiar, they're old friends, and so that one's easy. Snacking is the lowest occasion for eating outside the home, only 15% of eating occasions, and they tend to be the exact same foods you eat for snacking at home. It's fruit, it's chips, it's a bar, etc. So not a lot of consumer shift going on there in snacks. So primarily, it's going to be in lunch, and it's going to be in dinner.
Baking seems to be really popular right now. Why do you think that emerged so quickly?
Through the end of March, we saw items related to baking solutions double. Things like flour and eggs and sugar and frozen and refrigerated dough. There's a couple of things at work here. First off, there's just a lot of emotion going on, and we see people walking away from their diets and their weight management programs because that's so hard. They're just like, I can't think about that right now. And they're tipping towards indulgence and comfort foods. And I'm just telling you, banana bread is having a moment. It's spiking on Google Trends. It's one of the most searched recipes we have on our own websites. The second area is it's really an antidote to boredom and a way to engage with your kids. In looking at our social feeds, we're seeing a strong uptick in parents and kids, baking together. We're seeing a lot of pictures of people decorating cookies and that sort of things. So in terms of why it emerged, so quickly, it's because the schools closed at the same time as adults went home and losing their jobs, and you can only do so many craft projects. Throw in a holiday and the fact that it's still cold outside and people don't mind turning their ovens on, and you've got a perfect storm for cookies and cupcakes. We're also seeing recipes, requests for that. go off the rails in terms of search terms as well.
What factors take on importance for at-home eating? Is it about familiar brands, costs, certain types of meals?
I'm going to start with the obvious one that we've all been seeing. People are looking for shelf-stable food, right? They're looking for items that they can stockpile in case the food supply is interrupted. Consumers think that, actually could happen. They're shopping less often, right? And venturing outside for anything, it seems to introduce a high personal risk, and perishables can go bad. That's another reason we're making so darn much banana bread. What are we going to do with all those bananas? And nobody wants to waste any food in this era of perceived scarcity. So there's a big bucket around shelf-stable food. In terms of brands, consumers we haven't picked up any signals that consumers desire to walk away from their favorite brands. In fact, that's a source of normalcy and comfort, but availability has been an issue, right? So as they've been searching for their favorite brand and it's not on the shelf, they're trading out to unfamiliar brands and private label. In fact, in a survey that was taken among consumers saying, what is driving your choice now? How are you picking the brand that you are? The number one reason is availability. If it's on the shelf, I'm going to buy it. Number two is trust. Number three is safety. You would never hear those outside of a coronavirus pandemic. The next one is easy to serve. It's easy to use, has longer shelf life, and it's in larger packages. Cost didn't even hit the list. So what that means is right now we're in a very different phase. I think cost is going to creep up in importance later on, but for now it's things that are all related to, I don't know what's going to happen next with these themes of trust and safety. So that's the second bucket in terms of what's happening with brands. Third, people are trying to replicate a restaurant experience. And so again, when we see searches for recipes, we're seeing things like oven fried chicken tenders or copycat Chick-fil-A nuggets or copycat KFC or original style chicken. And so moms and dads and whoever's cooking in the house, they're trying to bring that experience home. And the last area is, with all this stocking, they're looking for ways to use up the food they have and make it into something very easy and very familiar. So again, when we look at recipes that are trending, it's grandma's chicken casserole or easy beef enchiladas or easy chicken and dumplings or easy fast tomato marinara. If you've got the word easy in front of your recipe, that is clickbait. That is exactly what consumers are looking for. So those are kind of the bucket of considerations consumers are making when they think about what to buy and what to make at home.
What do you think are new consumer problems we should be focused on solving right now?
Yeah, in every crisis there is opportunity, and some of these will be short-term opportunities that may turn into long-term opportunities. But to lead off, I just think the need for variety is going to increase. Especially when you think about dinner time. Maybe consumers had like a 10-meal portfolio they were working with, and they would intersperse with, let's go out and grab something, or let's get out and do something. Well, now they need a 20 idea portfolio, and so they'll be looking for variety. It's not a problem the first 2 weeks. We get into months 2 and 3, and it's going to be a big problem. And so more innovation about recipes and meals and solutions and keeping it easy. The second area is really around this tension adults have when they have kids in the house. They're not used to being the lunch lady in the middle of the day or the lunch guy in the middle of the day. And so how do we create more self-serve solutions for kids, for lunch and snacking and breakfast to offload the caretakers in the house? So that's a near-term solve that we need to help them out with. And the last one is, what am I going to do with all this stuff in my cupboard? I don't know what I was thinking when I bought 10 cans of beans and 5 bags of rice. And so I think, recipe engines that say, okay, this is what I got. I got a chicken, a can of corn, and a bag of rice. What are 5 ideas I can use with that? So those are new consumer problems, and a good thing about that is they don't all require us to come out with new products, because it's a tough time to introduce new products right now. It's hard for our customers to absorb them. It's hard for our team to get them made. A lot of these problems are just, let's talk about them differently and be online and be present, have great answers when they come in with those search terms.
How would you say this is different from the 2007 to 2009 recession?
There are a lot of similarities, and we draw on those to help inform where we need to go forward, but there are several differences that we've had to keep in mind as we use that to help us figure out what's coming. So there's 4 elements that I want to talk about. The first one is we have many more people out of work than we did in the 2007 to 2009 recession. In 3 weeks, unemployment claims are exponentially higher than anything we've ever seen before. And while we haven't seen the impact of that compressed income come through yet, because people are still working off their cash reserves, I think there will be a second wave of consumer behavior changes as that becomes more real and they drain down those cash reserves. So that is the first major difference. The second one is that there was no shelter in place going on in the last recession. Now we have that, which means people are at home. So convenience and ease are moving to the back burner a little bit because people do have more time to engage in cooking. And so you are seeing, more recipe searches for things that people can assemble and bake themselves and not just, throwing a frozen meal in the microwave. They are stepping into, while I have more time, let's see what I can do with that. The third thing is in the previous recession, nobody perceived any threat to the food supply chain. Nobody was thinking about that. Nobody's hoarding food. Nobody's stockpiling their cupboards. No, in case of emergency, break glass. Thank goodness I've got a couple cans of soup. And so we did not see this consumer behavior of shopping and eating from their own pantry inside their own homes. The last one is the big kahuna is restaurants never closed. They didn't close during the last recession. And while there was some, modest trade down activity, you'd go from fine dining to casual to quick serve restaurants like McDonald's, the behavior didn't change. They were still eating out, maybe a little bit less, maybe where I ate was different, but this whole shifting of 150 occasions from away from home to at home, not a factor. So while there are some similarities, there are significant departures from the last recession that we need to keep in mind going forward.
How much of what you see today do you think will hold as at-home eating trends after the guidance to stay at home has lifted?
You saved the hardest one for last. It's really hard to say because we are still so early, right? Week 5 didn't look anything like week 1, and week 9 won't look like week 5. But there are a couple of things that we can look forward to. Everybody talks about we're going to return to a new normal. I think that when people go back to work and kids go back to school and all their activities, all the same time constraints they had before will come back. So all their hacks for getting through life, they're going to come back as well, from takeout to eating in shifts. In other words, this new normal we're creating is not necessarily going to be in service to our old normal or even our next one. And while we won't go all the way back, we'll be back to kids' soccer games and traveling for work. Consumers will still be looking for solutions that kind of look like the old ones, maybe with a new spin. Another area is I don't anticipate a new generation of cooks forged from the hardships of COVID-19. I don't think that's going to happen. I think people will go back to restaurants because restaurants have always been more than about just the food. It's about celebration and relaxation and connection. And hey, somebody else is cooking and cleaning. Who doesn't want that, no matter where you are in life? So I think restaurants they'll be back. Third, in terms of brand switching, as consumers do switch out and try new brands, there will be some residual impact from that as they try things they would have not considered before, and that shift becomes permanent. So, in other words, I don't see wild swings. I do see changes, but in moderation. In terms of e-commerce, if people didn't shop online before and they liked it, more of them might do that. That still continues to be a very small channel in food. It only accounts for 3 to 4%. So even if it doubled, it's still pretty small. You'll be more equipped to cook if you have to. So we're all readier to be ready, I think, which is a good thing. And some brand switching, but not material. So to wrap up the question again, there will be some changes, but I think they'll be moderated over time.
Jeanine, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Bet. Thanks, Anna.